Shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We're up to page 334 of volume 2 of Rabbi Victor Miller's new translation and commentary of Duties of the Mind. And we are in Shah Bakina, the gate of examining. And we're about to look at part 20 of chapter 5, which is entitled Light and Darkness. Light and Darkness. And just so you are aware, chapter 5 is way back. Way back, and the overarching concept or topic is entitled, if I can just find it here for you, just in case you've just joined us, this is the first video you've clicked on and you've got no idea what we're talking about. It is which reflection is the most accessible. So that's the whole thing here, is we're looking at, out of all the things that we see around us, ourselves when we look in the mirror, and then when we start to delve into the human body and how complex it is and how it's just everything is a miracle upon miracle, miracle stacked upon miracle. And the more you think about it, the more you should be overwhelmed by the intricacy and the complexity of it. And the fact that if you're my age, for 54 years, your heart has been beating continuously, and we're all only just a heartbeat away from death. And with all the ailments and the illnesses that are floating around in the world, to have arrived at the age that I am, it's a miracle. And looking at all the things around us, looking at the cosmos, looking at the world, and how everything in the world, in the natural world, supports the ecology. And when we look into it deeper, you can see that everything really supports man. And then you look beyond that into the stars and the constellations, and there is evidence upon evidence upon evidence upon evidence upon evidence all around you, not just of the existence of Hashem. So this never should just stay an argument of creation versus evolution. That's really sad if the argument always stays there. It's a valid argument. It's an argument that should be had. We should always be arguing against these people who think that, a plastic bottle or a camera can come out of an explosion, essentially, is what they're saying. But it's a crime if that's where the argument always stays. Because it's not just that. It's the fact that Hashem has created everything with wisdom and in mercy. And the way he supports man with oxygen, how oxygen is prevalent, it's for free, how water is the second most prevalent thing and it's more abundant, and then there's food, which is even less prevalent than water, and is slightly more difficult to come by. It takes somebody working a field or earning a wage, and a person can live without water for 3 days on average, but a person can live without food, for weeks on end. And the food's not something that is readily available as oxygen, which a person can't live without for more than, a minute or so. Anyway, let's get into it. I hope that gives you a little bit of if you're new to the channel. Rabbi Victor Miller recorded a series of lectures back in the 80s. He's a rabbi, a very recent contemporary Jewish sage, lived in the US. He was a Cohen. And he went through the writings of Rabbi Bakya ibn Pekuda, who wrote a very influential book in the Jewish world called Chivot HaLevavot, which means the duties of the heart. And so he did a series of lectures over the course of a year. And these lectures were all recorded on audio cassette. And they are available in their entirety online to download as an MP3. If you go to the link underneath this video, you can pick up the actual download, all of the lectures. I think it's for around $150 US. I think it's US. And so, if you've got the time, you can actually listen to all the lectures as though you were there back in the 80s. But if you can't do that, or you don't want to do that, and you want to read his actual lectures as they have been transcribed into the Chivot HaLevavot, which has given birth to Duties of the Mind, with his new translation, then you can do so. You can do so on your own, or you can join us on these videos and go through the videos. I also have morning audio series where we're actually going through them every morning, and we're significantly further down the line looking at the fifth gate, the gate of single-minded devotion to Hashem, and that's where we're up to on the morning audios. If you want to be included on that, let me know. Put a comment underneath this video, and we'll hash out how to get in touch with each other. And I can send these audios to you via Messenger, WhatsApp, or Signal, whatever you've got. Okay, let's get into it. So this is part 20. As I said, light and darkness. This is chapter 5, part 20 of chapter 5. Among the many good things that Hashem did for mankind, all the good things of the world are intended only for the benefit of mankind. So that's just underscoring some of what my opening remarks were there. It is that as much as you look into the signs of the Chokhmat Hashem, the wisdom of Hashem in created things, you will find that in addition to testifying to Hashem as being the creator and to his oneness, the created things do not avoid being of service to mankind and providing some useful purpose to him. Nothing can be accepted from the principle that all is for the benefit of mankind. So again, this is underscoring what I opened with, in that when you look around you at creation, not only does it just testify to Hashem's greatness and the fact that he exists, not only does it testify to the fact that does he exist, it also testifies to his greatness. But not only does it testify to his greatness, it also testifies to his care and love and concern for mankind by providing for mankind all the raw materials and the resources for him to have an interesting life on the earth and to enjoy a sunset, look at the mountains and go hiking and do all these amazing things. And enjoy different climates and seasons and so on and so forth. So Hashem is created for us in a beautiful environment. If he so chose, he could have created the world in a very basic way. He could have made every food taste the same. He could have made it so there was only maybe 4 types of foods and they all taste reasonably similar. To procreate, he could have invented just the clasping of hands for more than a minute and maybe shaking them up and down, and then all of a sudden the woman is pregnant. He could have created it in a way that was as basic as that, but he didn't. He created complexity. He created detail and meaning that is pregnant within meaning. Like he made something to discover, something to explore, something to pursue. He made for man a purpose. So it's very important that we get beyond this arguing whether God exists. I mean, we're still on page 1 of like a 5,000 page book. We've been there for years. We've got to, it's time for us to move on. Hashem is Echad. Hashem is one. So Echad is a Hebrew word that is best translated in English as one, but it means more than that. It means something that is so intrinsically important to the creation that it's as though you have Hashem as like a bright light, and by diminishing himself in various ways, he allows definition to appear in that light, which creates the world. So it's like a film going through a camera. It casts a bright light on a wall, and once the film goes through, it actually blocks the light to create the picture. And so that's the creation that we see around us. So Hashem is that light, and he is the one that purposed the different ranges of blockages of that light that enables us to define shapes and see a world around us, if that makes any sense. So the oneness we're talking about is the canvas that the painting is painted on. It's the paint. It's the wood that stretches the canvas. It's the paint brushes. It's the painter. It's everything, absolutely everything. So Hashem is Echad, and therefore everything in his creation works together. For example, the heat of the sun causes water to evaporate from the oceans and then rise up to form clouds. The wind cooperates to blow the clouds over the continents, where they release the water in the form of rain. The force of gravity cooperates with the rain so that it falls to the earth. Then the sun shines again on the earth and causes vegetation to grow. The soil contributes by means of the fertile substance it contains. And so the sun, the ocean, and the winds cooperate with the force of gravity to produce rain. Finally, the soil cooperates to produce food. Thus, everything testifies to the akdut, the oneness, to oneness. Everything works together. Everything works together. And this is not to even mention the seed, which is sour to the taste, because the seed that's in the fruit that you eat, the Creator doesn't want you to eat the seed as well. So it is a plain looking color. It is sour to the taste, and it is hard, and it contains all the blueprints and properties to produce after its own kind another tree that produced that fruit. And when that goes into the soil, it somehow magically knows what it needs to do to gestate itself as another plant, as another tree, to bear fruit. And that's not even mentioning that, but I just mentioned it. And we've mentioned it many times in this series. Everything in creation is for the benefit of mankind. Everything in creation is for the benefit of mankind. That includes flies, bugs, snakes, spiders, all the creepy crawlies. All of these things have been created for the benefit of mankind. David Amelich had the same issue with spiders. He wondered why spiders were created. What was the purpose of a spider? And he answered David Amelich when he fled from Shaul. He ran down a cave, and he ran into the actual passageways of a cave, came to a dead end, couldn't get out, and knew that Shaul Amelich, King Saul, was going to find him. But as he was making his way through this cave, a spider spun a web just inside the opening of the cave. And so when Shaul's men came looking for David, they saw that there was a huge spider web over the mouth of the cave. So they didn't go into the cave to pursue David and capture him, because this spider since had spun a web over the mouth of the cave that David was in. And when David came out, he was curious, because he thought he was definitely going to be found out. And as he came to the entrance and the light was shining in, he could see this huge spider web, and he remembered that he asked Hashem what was the benefit of spiders, and so Hashem in that way answered him. And obviously that's not the only benefit that spiders provide. They eat insects and things like that. Anyway, nice. It's an interesting story. Similar to that of Robert the Bruce, but okay, I'll keep going. Won't go down that rabbit hole either. However, some of the benefits are evident and others are concealed. Okay, some things that we see around us, like the sun, and other things aren't so obvious. And this is what a lot of people struggle with. The average sort of Christian on the street, they kind of want everything sort of spoon-fed to them in a very basic way, but this is not how the Bible that they profess to follow operates. There are things that are obvious and there are things that aren't so obvious. There are things that are exposed and there are things that are concealed, and there's a reason for that concealment. It's like the human body. The hands and the head are usually exposed. That's okay. And sometimes the feet. But when we have other parts of the body exposed, it can be a problem, and it's an analogy for all aspects of creation, and that some things are to remain concealed and some things have to be exposed. We have a mission to study and discover even the concealed benefits as much as we can, and what purpose is, and what chokhmah there is, and what wisdom there is. Among these things is light and darkness. The benefits of light are apparent and visible to everyone. They are not concealed. So most people will be able to give you a bit of a discourse on why light is important. But what about darkness? How do you think you'll go in describing what benefits are there in the darkness? In truth, the true benefits of light are concealed if a person doesn't think about them, even though he says the bracha, who fashions the luminaries, and that is one of the passages that is recited in the daily prayers of the Orthodox Jews, who fashions the luminaries with wisdom, I think it is. Every day of his life, he doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't realize what a great blessing the sun is for the world and what a great happiness it is. So, an Orthodox Jew gets taught to say a bunch of blessings in the morning and do some fixed prayer. And he does it faithfully. And then he goes and he learns about what he's saying. And so what happens is when he's saying it, after he's learnt, or as he's learning more and more about the subjects that he is bringing up in his prayers, in his morning prayers, he is able to say them with far more than just words. So yes, he's saying them with words and it doesn't change. It's not like he's singing them now or he's dancing when he sings them, although he can if he wants. But there's something that's lying underneath the surface of those words that are being spoken, because now he has become more acquainted with what it means to give Hashem a blessing for the luminaries that he's provided for mankind. Rather than just being told, I'll give thanks to Hashem for the sun. Why do we give him thanks for the sun? Oh, because it gives us light and warmth. And boom, and then you move on. But the complexity of that whole concept of the sun is so much more than that, and it's almost like an insult to just, give a dissertation on it like that and in 2 sentences and move on. Like that's the level of your gratitude for the sun? Okay. He doesn't realize what a great blessing the sun is for the world, what a great happiness it is. He fashions luminaries every day of his life. He doesn't know what he is saying. If a person doesn't think about them, even though he says the bracha, he's missing so much. Even though he's presenting himself at the right times, he's verbally giving thanks to Hashem. He's going through all the outward motions, but inwardly he's still got a disconnect there. The sun warms the earth. If it was a little further away, we would all freeze. So the sun is at the exact correct location in the cosmos, hanging in space from the earth that it should be. If it was 1 inch further away or 1 inch closer, it would be a catastrophe. And so to think that was all calculated, it boggles the mind. It's like, okay, wow. The sun is also the source of energy for the earth. It is a battery that supplies the energy to power everything that takes place on the earth, all the movement, the people walking, cars running, anything that is happening in this world is possible only because the sun's energy has provided that source of power. When we hear somebody talking, we're utilizing sunlight that was transformed into energy. Even our thinking needs energy like a computer needs a battery. The mind cannot function without energy, and therefore the sun is the source of everything that happens The sun is the source of everything that happens. The sun is our major source of light, including the ultraviolet light, which causes our skin to produce vitamin D, and that is essential to our health. The sun also produces food for enabling plants and trees to grow. Rain falls only because of the sun. The heat of the sun causes the water of the sea to evaporate and rise to form clouds. The rain is water that is brought from the sea after being evaporated by the rays of the sun. And so sunlight deserves to be studied. The Malakim, the angels, are never finishing, the angels never finish praising Hashem, as they say, and that's quoting from the part of the morning prayers near where you mentioned the bright luminaries, giving thanks and blessing Hashem for the luminaries of the sky, or the luminaries of light. And for the bright luminaries of the light you made, they shall glorify you forever. Now, who shall glorify you forever? The Malakim, the angels. But the benefits of darkness are hidden. Every evening we thank Hashem for the creation of nighttime. Every evening we thank Hashem for the creation of nighttime. And this is part of the Mariv prayers that an Orthodox Jew will say. And so we're sort of being exposed now to this class of people that have a daily schedule of acknowledging Hashem's greatness in a formal, unified way. And they all join a chorus of a service on the earth when they partake in these prayers at different times throughout the day, acknowledging the array of things that the Almighty has bestowed upon man and in a sense they connect with the praise and worship of the Malachim, the angels that also do their daily duty in the heavenlies as well. And so you're going, whoa, okay, all right. And so this is something I haven't thought about before. Okay. See, up until now, we've just been sort of floating along, kind of going, you're forever like, Harry Potter looking around at the the university and going, oh, look at how wonderful that is. That was one of the main things that used to frustrate me about those films. People say, oh, they're demonic, you shouldn't watch them. Okay, whatever. But the true crime of that was this, for the first 4 films, it just seemed like he was like going, oh, wow, ooh, wow, wow. When was he just going to get on with it? Anyway, I'm sidetracking. Where was I? Where was I? Is that ADHD? I don't know. Maybe it is. Let ADHD work for you. Clearly, we need to study the significance of this creation so that we will appreciate it and understand why we make a point of thanking him for darkness, right? Remember, we're talking about darkness. Because in darkness, people feel overwhelmed. Their activities and their movements are suspended when the darkness comes. We remember the plagues of Egypt, and one of the plagues was darkness. And it wasn't just like a normal darkness. What type of plague is that? It's just like, oh, it was an eclipse. It's actually nighttime. How's that oppressive? How's this an impressive plague? No, it was a darkness that was a heaviness. And so all of the actual air became heavy. The darkness actually had a weight. And so people during that plague of darkness who were affected by it, mainly the Egyptians, they weren't able to move, nor were they able to even go to the toilet. And so wherever they were found at the time the onset of this plague occurred, they were pretty much stuck in that same physical position. And I don't know how long it went for, but I think it went for at least a day or two, maybe even 3 days. And I'm thinking, man, certainly there would have been some people that would have died, depending on where they were, how they were postured. Even somebody who was sort of midway leaping through the air would have been frozen in the air. It's just amazing when you read it, and people say, well, that's just the rabbis talking about it. And no, but if you study the text, it really emphasizes that there was something that was uniquely different about this darkness, that it was a thick darkness, I think the English translation describes. But I recommend going and reading more about it. It's an absolutely fascinating plague. Otherwise, they wouldn't have even recognized it as a plague. They would have just said, this isn't a plague, this is just an eclipse, or it's just happens to be a very dark night. What's the damage? This is probably the least destructive plague out of all of them. It's like darkness. Hang on, we have darkness every day. At the end of every day. Again, I'm getting off the track. Because in darkness people feel overwhelmed, their activities and their movements are suspended when the darkness comes. In darkness people don't venture out, they avoid new initiatives, preferring to remain in the safety of their homes. This was especially true in times when wild animals roamed the fields and the forests. Even in the city, it was better to be home as much as possible at night. Thus people did not generally travel at night. If not for darkness of the night, the bodies of most living creatures would wear out from their constant toil and labor and continued movement, working around the clock if there was never any darkness, because it gives the animals a real reprieve when the wild animals are reprieve from what they have to do to survive during the day when it's nighttime. If there were no periods of darkness, people would work continually. So not just animals, it also affect humans in a similar way. We'd wear out. We'd never be able to stop working. They would neglect the care of their body, take short rests, and return quickly to work. Because of the lack of the regular periods of sleep, people would be worn out. Their health would deteriorate and they would die much sooner because of lack of nighttime darkness. Sleep is one of the greatest blessings that Hashem bestowed on mankind. In sleep, people are able to close their eyes and close consciousness so that their mind and the body can repair themselves. Frayed nerves are soothed and rebuilt so that the body can function with energy and purpose. Sleep is powerful. Sleep is powerful. Healing medicine. Sleep is a powerful healing medicine, if I can read. One of the greatest medicines in existence. This essential medicine would not be available to us without nighttime. This essential medicine would not be available to us without nighttime. The night is forced on men and beasts, all of whom benefit by it. Some beasts come out only at night because they are afraid to venture out in the daytime. Nighttime is when they are able to go out and forage for food, whereas by day they take refuge and hide themselves. Only by means of the night, periods of time can be distinguished. Only by means of the night, periods of time can be distinguished from each other. It's very interesting. We mark the passage of time by the coming of the night. We mark the passage of time by the coming of the night. This boundary enables us to make a basic unit of the calendar consisting of a day and night. By means of the night, people can determine the duration of unknown periods of time. Otherwise, we wouldn't know how many days an event was scheduled to take place. If we hired a car for 10 days, we wouldn't know when the rental period is up because there would be no clear demarcation of the passage of days. And it indeed would. If you removed night time and kept the calendar as it were, it would be very difficult to follow the calendar that we have if it stayed exactly the same and night time didn't fall, because it's very helpful to have that obvious sign that it is now nighttime. Because without it, you'd constantly be having to look at a watch. Even on the road, you'd be constantly, what time is it? What time is it? What time is it? By means of the night, people can measure the length of their lives or the shortness of their lives. Otherwise, we wouldn't know how old a person is. That measurement is made possible by counting the days and the years. I guess you'd have to have your AM hours. Yeah, you couldn't really do that because the AM and the PM hours go into those two spheres. Because you have AM hours that appear in a time when it's dark and light, and you've got PM hours that appear in a time when it's darkness and light. So you'd have to change the actual time to have time that reflects actually the days that would be otherwise the time where it'd be light, and then the time where it normally would be dark. Yeah, it'd just be, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. I mean, I'm sure you could try, but it would be a nightmare. By means of the night, people can measure the length of their lives or the shortness of their lives. Otherwise, they wouldn't know how old a person was. That measurement is made possible by counting the days and the years. When we see that certain people who lived a long life, we want to understand what they did to earn such a reward from Hashem. Without the ability to count days and years, we would not be able to appreciate this. People would not be aware that someday, people would not be able, I'll get it right in a second. People would not be aware that somebody died young because they would not be able to keep in mind the length of his days. Thus, they would just say he died and not that his short life was due to his sins. If time were always continuous, such as if it was always daytime, we couldn't have any mitzvot that depend on time, such as Shabbos, festivals, and fast days. People couldn't make appointments for any set date, and they wouldn't know the great amount of time dependent. They wouldn't know the great amount of time-dependent information. A great deal of information affecting people is dependent on the calculation of time. And therefore, the author tells us to stop and think about that great benefit. And I can tell, if you've been watching this video up to now, I can tell you're sitting there watching the video and going, I didn't think that deeply about a couple of these subjects. That's food for thought. And this is just scratching the surface. What we're, 10, 15 minutes in. And, there's ultimately, if Hashem allows, there's going to be hundreds of videos in this channel that are on this series, which is 10 volumes. Don't you think this is stuff that you might need to be across? You think, and I'm talking to you who believes in God and is maybe trying to live a life that pleases God. I'm not talking to the person that doesn't believe in God. They wouldn't be watching this video or even know the existence of this channel. I'm talking to the one who believes they have some sort of connection with God. And so you're reading all this stuff and you're going, I didn't think about that. And so all these things have eluded you until now. And then you're like, okay, so whoa. And so now your whole avodat, your whole service to Hashem is now going to like get sort of corporate. It's going to go to a new level because you're like, okay, this is crazy. Whereas before you were kind of just sort of like, I don't know, I guess sort of in a type of kindergarten, like, oh yeah, it's sort of shapes, colored shapes on a felt board, but now it's like, oh, look at this. So a great deal of information affecting people is dependent on the calculation of time, and therefore the author tells us to stop and think about that great benefit. Actually, the darkness of night brings with it many additional benefits. For example, when nighttime comes, the sun stops its process of working the earth to process vegetation. All day long, the heat and the light of the sun draw out the earth's resources. At nighttime, this process stops. If that did not happen, the fertile soil of the farms would not have a chance to recover and would lose its fertility and soon become arid. Because, if the sun's shining on it all day, it will just actually dry out the soil. And with nighttime, it gives the soil a chance to, re-moisturize, so to speak. The soil would quickly turn to sand and would lose its fertility. But during the night, the soil is able to recuperate. The bacteria and the fungi in the soil become more active at night, and they work to rebuild and restore the materials that would expand during the day. Then the next morning, just as a person rises afresh and reinvigorated, the soil is again fresh and ready to do its duty. There are many other changes between night and day that we don't fully understand. For example, during the day, plants absorb carbon dioxide from the air through the process of photosynthesis, which operates under the influence of sunlight. And there's probably some of you have been watching this and waiting for me to mention that. At the night, this process stops, but plants emit carbon dioxide into the air through a process called transpiration, which is similar to the process of breathing in humans and animals. This is insane. Wow. The interaction of these complex processes maintains the world as we know it by maintaining the conditions of our atmosphere. These physical and chemical processes support the health of all living creatures, people, animals, and plants. All of these things are kept in balance through the change that Hashem made in switching between day and night. So, jot down on a piece of paper all the things you've learned about day and night, about the daytime and the nighttime that you perhaps didn't even know about before. Or maybe you learnt these when you were in high school and you forgot about them and you've been reminded. That still counts. Write it down. And so what are you doing now? What are we doing right now? We're giving thanks to the creation that Hashem has bestowed upon us, right? And so we're examining the gift that Hashem has given us by watching this video and thinking about and discussing these things. Is that a valuable use of our time? Heck yeah, of course it is. It's absolutely insanely valuable. Unless you're engaged in prayer or doing a mitzvah, where's the crime in what we're doing now? What we're choosing to learn now? It's every sort of sentence, it's expanding our appreciation of Hashem. And who knows what that's going to now draw out of us in terms of what our commitment is in serving Him. So if you close this video and your service to Hashem is, you've in your mind want to improve it just by 1%, that's worth it. Therefore, we should try to grasp some idea of the chokhmah of Hashem, the wisdom of Hashem, and be grateful for the great gift of night. Even if we do not grasp the immensity of this gift, we should try to feel gratitude for all the related benefits, hoping that someday we might better understand. These are the thoughts that we should have in mind when we say each morning, "Blessed are you, Hashem, who brings on evenings." Part of the morning prayers that the Orthodox Jews do. If there were no darkness of night, food would not be properly digested in the stomachs of any living creatures. Digestion goes on all the time, but it is most effective when the individual is at rest. Then the stomach is not in a competition with the limbs that require blood to supply them with the energy for their activities. So when you eat, it's energy for the body. But when you're on the go all the time, that energy is always required for those limbs. But when you eat and you go to sleep, there's no additional requirement for the energy to go to any particular place. It can be spread evenly to other parts of the body that aren't as needy, but still nonetheless require that energy. Digestion goes on all the time, but it is most effective with the individuals at rest. When the stomach is not in competition with the limbs that require blood to supply them with energy for their activities, and therefore more blood is available to the digestive system to move and churn the food, and then extract the necessary substance that the body requires rather. This process is enabled by the many blood vessels throughout the digestive system. During the day, a person is in constant movement, and blood has to be provided to other organs to help him carry out the various functions. Thus, less blood is available for digestion, but at night time with extra blood flow, that extra blood flow is available to the digestive system, and the digestive system is more complete. And the digestion system is more complete, sorry. Since man needs light at night to do some of his work and to visit the sick, the Creator gave him the light of fire as a substance for the light of the sun, which he can use at night whenever he pleases and extinguish whenever he pleases. If he wants to be dark if he wants it to be in dark in order to sleep, he simply puts out the light. The author is now speaking about the benefits of artificial light. We need to appreciate the artificial light as one of the creations of Hashem, and we thank Hashem for the creation of natural light. Each day when we say the Brakah, he who fashions the luminaries from the Shachrit morning, Shachrit Tefillah, that the Orthodox male Jew will do. And can a Noahide say this prayer? Absolutely. You can make it a custom to do that, as long as you don't tell people that, Hashem commands everyone to do it. You can certainly adopt these prayers as well. Who knows? You may be down the track, you may be on your way to convert. So you've got to learn somehow. You don't just, one moment you're not Jewish and the next minute you convert and boom, all of a sudden you're doing all these things. However, once a week, on Motzei Shabbos, we speak of artificial light. When we say the Brakah, who creates the illuminations of the fire? Nevertheless, we benefit from artificial light all around us day and night. Therefore, we should not limit our appreciation to Motzei Shabbos, but we should be grateful for artificial light any time that we have the opportunity to think about its benefits. The most basic form of artificial light is the flame of candle. And, in this video, I'm using artificial light right now. It's a phenomenon that deserves thought. The combustion in a flame is the combination of oxygen and carbon to produce carbon dioxide. Why does this combustion cause light? Combustion can go on without light, as we see in other chemical reactions, but Hashem caused the combustion of the burning candle to occur in such a way as to produce light, and therefore that light is part of the blessing of Hashem's creation of light. As it says, Hashem saw that the light was good. He saw that the light was good, and that's, of course, quoting from Bereshit 1:4, Genesis chapter 1, verse 4. And therefore, the great blessing of light is available at all times, even at night time. We have to appreciate not only the fact of light, but the convenience of light nowadays. Not long ago, even gas lights were considered a wonderful modern invention. People marveled at how the gas was transported from its source through pipes to private homes. But it was necessary to light gas lamps with a match. This was true even for the street lights. There were lamplighters who went around with ladders lighting every street light by hand. Remember the shamish of the local shul using a very long pole. I remember the shamish, that is the deacon or the servant of a local shul, a house of worship, a Jewish synagogue, using a very long pole on the end of which was a burning wick to put on the gas lights on the ceiling. Everybody was proud of the modern invention, but there was no gas lights in the small villages of Europe. And then along came electricity and the world transformed. Along came electricity and the world transformed. When Edison first brought in a collection of scientists and industrialists to see his new invention, he said he would show them something remarkable. He turned on the first electric light that they ever saw, and they were amazed. It was like the sun was being turned on, the light of the day. Today we are accustomed to electricity, but it is really remarkable how bright the electric lights are, and then came fluorescent lights and so on. we have to thank Hashem for all the modern additions and inventions that make life so comfortable for us. And so we should not overlook this blessing. We should keep in mind that when the Torah says Hashem saw that the light was good, it also means artificial light. And just as an additional thing that I want to add there, these commentaries, this lecture by Rav Avigdor Miller, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, were in the 1980s. It's not until the sort of mid to late 2000s, maybe you could argue the early 2000s, that Nikola Tesla began to be recognized as being a major contributor to, the invention of electricity. I remember going to a science museum in Canberra as a kid, and it was all Thomas Edison. And 10 years or so ago, I took my kids to the same centre, which had moved to another location in Canberra, and there was hardly anything about Thomas Edison. You couldn't see anything. It was all Nikola Tesla. And they even had an electrical, you could see electricity come out of the end of a stick every now and then. And this was the same thing they had back when I was a kid and I went on the excursion to Canberra, but it was all Thomas Edison, talking about Thomas Edison around it. And then years later, when I took my own kids, it was Thomas Edison was out and it was Nikola Tesla. All the info was Nikola Tesla around it. So it's interesting how long it took for good old Tesla to get a mention there. But I just want to add that that was something that I experienced in my life, which I found is interesting. Like, everybody used to talk about Tesla in the 90s, and everyone thought people were conspiracy nuts and everything. And then finally, mainstream science came around. So it's very interesting. Anyway, back on the topic, it is also amazing the color of the sky is one of the colors that strengthen the eyesight. Did you hear that? One of the colors of the sky, it is amazing that the color of the sky, is one of the colors that strengthens eyesight. It is a deep blue, almost black, which has unique power of concentrating and strengthening the light perceived by the eyes. Thus, the blue color of the sky helps the eyes to see without causing strain. If the sky was colored white, it would be harmful to the creatures if they looked at it constantly, and it would weaken them. The sky is a shade of blue that is easy on the eyes, pleasing to look at. Some colors like red strain the eyes, but the sky is a mild color that doesn't present any difficulty to the eye, even if one looks at it for a long time. So there you go. It's something you can practice after after you've watched this video. You go out on a bright sunny day with no cloud in the sky and it's all blue sky. Go and look at the blueness of the sky for a couple of hours to repair your eyes. Black is the easiest of the eye to bear because light is, after all, a strain for the eye. Black is the easiest for the eye to bear because light is, after all, a strain for the eye. Thus, the mildest form of light is that which more closely resembles black than any other color, and that is the blue of the sky. It is a chesed, a kindness of Hashem, that wherever we look, we are able to see a color that is pleasing to the eyes. Now, green is also a pleasing color. It is easy on the eyes, and that is why all nature turns green when vegetation begins to sprout. In commenting on the mitzvah of Arba Minim, the 4 species we perform on Sukkot, that is the shaking of the lulav, the etrog, and the wordle, and the miller, the etrog, the myrtle, and the willow, is a time of simcha, of joy, and the sight of green branches enhances the feeling of simcha, of joy. I suppose that this is because we instinctively identify the color green with the growth of vegetation, that is with protective shade, food and fuel, all of which make our lives more enjoyable. And therefore blue and green are also widely used by Hashem because they are the most beneficial for us. Both of these colors minimize eye strain, and green make us feel instinctively happy. So the color green makes you feel instinctively happy. Of course, we need to remember that the author has described only some part of the universe of phenomena which we should study. In the same way, there is wisdom in other created things. We should take the descriptions given up to and now merely as examples of what we should get into the habit of recognizing the Hesed Hashem, the kindness of Hashem, and the Chokhmah Hashem everywhere. So we've got to continually look out to see what we can see that is kindness and is wisdom of Hashem. When you see something, do you immediately see it as a provision given by Hashem out of His kindness, and in a way that's so intricate and detailed and appropriate that it comes from a place of wisdom? Or you just look at it and go, oh yeah, that's amazing, like the secular modern day universities do? They just look at all these things and just go, yeah, it's amazing, but it still came from a random explosion. As we say, His greatness and His kindness fill the world. And this is again from the Shachrit prayers on Shabbat, uniquely said on Shabbat. Because remember, on Shabbat, the prayers are slightly different to how they are on the weekday with some brachot. Wherever we look, we see the greatness of Hashem. We see His wisdom, His power, His planning, His purpose, His order, and His kindness. And that is going to be the word of the day, kindness. So if you've watched this video right to the very end, please put in a comment and use in that sentence the word kindness, and I will know, and Hashem will know, and you will know that you have done some hard yard Torah learning with me today. And for that, I gratefully thank you for joining me, because this helps me as much as it helps you, and together we're working as a team to spread knowledge of Hashem throughout the world by watching these videos, liking these videos, and sharing these videos. Until next time, Hashem willing, bye for now.